In this session, we're going to dig in a little bit deeper inside payroll for configuration required for certified projects and for unions as well. So first we'll dig into certified setup and then we'll jump into unions. So in this stage of it, at this point, you can be at top level or entity level. As always, I like to just work from entity level in payroll. But as far as certified goes, you want to review some of the things from the prior session as far as the trades and levels. So the one thing to consider for certified is when you're setting up your trades and levels, you want to make sure that they're set up accordingly. And so you'll be able to report the descriptions properly on the certified report. You have two options for that. At the trade, you can have the work classification right here be what shows up on the certified report. If you only needed to say laborer, for example, you can do it right there. You can also do it at the level. So if you have the levels filled out, we can have the descriptions from level 1 come out here as well. And for more information on how it pre-fills that, let us know, Q&A, ticket, and we'll make sure that you have the right descriptions linking on your certified reports. But in this case, if you're pulling from the levels, you might want to have a description that maybe is a combination, like laborer level 1 or apprentice year 1. As far as journeyman, you might want to say laborer journeyman, laborer foreman if you need it to show up. But these are changeable. You can change these after. I'm going to leave it as is for now in the system. So basically in your trades, you're going to make sure you have that set up correctly. And then for, if you're union based, same concept here. You're going to have your trades at as less, as summarized as possible. So mechanical, laborer. We're going to deal with the locals later, but your levels, basically you're going to need a level if the package changes or if the rate is different. You're going to need to have different levels set up for each of those different rates that we can use later on in the system. So once you get your trades and levels set up, you're going to be working in these compensation tables, which is under setup compensation tables for payroll. I do have some already set up in the system, and we'll go in and take a look at a few. So if we're talking about certified, a lot of times for certified projects, the simplest way to set up these tables is really just to make it the same as the job number. So you can see, for example, here I have 23-010 prevailing, 22-009. Because how easy it is to duplicate these tables, even if you have 3 jobs that use the same table, you can just take this one, duplicate it, rename it, and then set it up for each job. So that's the easiest way to do it. You can also do it by area or location. So if you have one certified area and the tables are always the same, some people elect to kind of put the county or the area, and then they can use that table on multiple projects. But in this scenario, let's go into the 23010 project. To create one from scratch, you just click New. But what will happen here is, actually, let's do that real quick. So let's just hit Create New. You would label it. So let's say if the job was 29001, make sure your effective date is backdated enough so that if you're doing some testing, that you don't run into errors because you're trying to test on a week that is before the effective date. But in here, create the table, and then you have to add your trades. So again, these are all based on your setup, so they're only going to show you the trades that you have set up. So maybe this is just for laborers. You can click on the trade laborers. And then underneath here, you can add your different levels. So maybe on this project, you're only going to have landscape and level 1. You don't have to add them all. Doesn't hurt to add them all, but you don't have to. Okay. And then for a certified project, typically what you're doing is you're coming into here at each level and you're defining the pay rate. So if I come over to here and open up the level 1, I'm going to click Add Rate. And then it's going to make me pick the rate that this is eligible. So the pay ID, the hour type. So in this case, we're saying if it's regular, for this certified project, this level 1 laborer gets $26 an hour. Okay. And then you can come down to here for the landscape and you can say add a rate, regular. Let's say the landscape is $28.50 an hour. And you can save this as much as you need here. So I'm going to click save. Once I save it, you can go back into it. So what then would happen next is back in the pay modifier setup, typically you're going to have a cash fringe that is set up in the system pay modifiers. So let's go take a look at that real quick. And inside here, it's going to be called whatever you want to be called. So I'm just going to kind of take a look at what do we have here. We have ours set up in the demo environment here as PW cash fringe, and it's set up as a reimbursement. So we've typically seen this happening two ways. Either they're giving the employees a physical cash fringe, a payment in the system. And so in that case, if it's going to be added as cash and taxed in their pay stub or in their pay, you're going to set this up as a pay category of reimbursement. Okay. And what you'll need to do here in your setup of the pay modifier is list out all of the hour types that are eligible for this cash fringe benefit. Typically, when you're doing that, you will not have an amount in here because you're going to put the amount in when you set up the tables, and we'll show that next. So these would typically be 0. And then down here, you do have the ability to reduce this fringe down. So for example, if you're allowed to deduct employer paid benefits from these cash fringe calculations, you can list each of the benefits that are eligible right here. So you can see for pay modifiers, they said they created a 401k match fringe. They have the Medicare, employer paid medical, and employer paid dental, and they're allowed to reduce that. So these don't have to be hour based. They can be amount based, and the system will convert them to per hour and reduce it off of the value. In addition to that, you always want to list your time card / salary earnings here as a reduction as well. Because what the system's going to do is it's going to look at what the employee rate of pay was, what benefits they got, and then they're going to compare it to what their pay rate was supposed to be from the table and their cash fringe rate was supposed to be from the table. So there is a scenario where maybe you're paying the employee more than the certified rate. So in that case, it would also deduct what you're paying them more from the balance. So when you're setting up the initial pay modifier, you just want to get the hour types correct, what all the taxes, if it's a cash fringe, and then what you can reduce it by. Now, some people elect to put it into a retirement fund or something like that. So the difference there is you still call it cash fringe or call it whatever you want here. But the only difference is your pay category would then be other compensation. So that means the company's paying it on behalf for you. So you're not getting it increasing your net pay. They're putting it into a retirement plan or something like that. That's the only difference. In that scenario, you wouldn't calculate tax on it. So you would leave that off. You would still list your rates and your deductions. Okay. So once you have this cash fringe set up, you need to build it out in each of the compensation tables. So if we go back into the one we just did, which was the 29 one, then I would come into here and I would say, all right, well, level 1, they're getting $26, but on level 1, there's also a cash fringe. So you would add the fringe right here, and it's going to be an hour-based fringe. You'd see it on the list. There it is. It would pre-fill everything you just saw in the setup of it. The only thing that's critical here is you need to make sure you flip this over to cash fringe yes. Even if you're doing the retirement and it's an other compensation, this tells the system to do that calculation. So this has to be turned on yes. Then this is where you would put the actual cash fringe rate. So let's say it's $15 per hour. It doesn't matter if it's overtime, double time, regular, it's $15 additional dollars. And if you notice, we are going to reduce what they actually got paid and these benefits. So that all comes over. So once you establish that, you'll click save. And now you have a $26 rate and a $15 cash fringe benefit. And then you'll be able to test that. So you don't have to set up this cash fringe in the employee file. It'll come strictly from this table right here. Okay. So you would do the same thing for the landscape level as well. And that's what you need to get a certified table set up. In addition to that, once you are to complete your certified setup for this project, you would want to go over to the payroll job setup. So if we go to setup, from payroll, we go to setup jobs, and you would want to either grab the job that's on the list already, or if you haven't set it up yet, you would come over to here and say create new, and then you would pull that job up. I don't believe I have a 29 job. I was just playing. So I'm just going to pretend it's the Deluxe Hotel here. And, as of what date? I'll just put it in as of March 1st. It's linked to my timber entity. But here you'll see this prevailing wage compensation table. Here's where you'll say this project is going to use this table that we just created. Okay, and that's the key there that finishes the process for the certified project. There is one more area, and we'll get into it in the later sessions when we're going through this job setup screen. But over in, let me save this. Let's go back and just grab a job here. So let's say this one here already has the prevailing set up. So we go into here, you see this reporting properties tab. For certified, this is where we need to make sure you have a reporting properties set up, and we'll go over this again in later videos. But this information can pre-fill in on the certified report as well. So basically you can come into here and fill some information out, like, where is it? Type of work right here. Things like that will pre-fill address, will pre-fill on the certified report, and that's where that's coming from. But again, we'll go into that at a later point. Next up would be our union setup in our compensation table. So again, we have our trades and levels set up for the unions. So in this case, you would come in and create a compensation table, but usually you'd label it something like this. Keep a consistent labeling scheme so it's neatly stored, whether you're doing something like this. I think this is a little overkill here with these underscores and stuff like that. I like this type of method right here where it's, hey, here's the plumbers table, and it's for local 290, plumbers, local 325, plumbers, and you just laborers this, carpenters this, whatever you have, use that as your description. But in here, it's the same process as certified as far as, hey, you're going to add your trade, plumbers, you're going to add the levels underneath that you may have for this union. So in this case, they have a bunch of apprentice levels, they got journeyman, foreman, whatever your definitions are going to be listed here. And then just like before, you're going to have the ability under the level to put in the union rate of pay, REG. Now, notice, and this is from last time for the certified as well, notice I didn't have to list out overtime, double time for the hour types. And that's because I established a 1.5 and a 2.0 factor on OT and DT back when we did the hour type setup. So as long as you have the factors set up and it's saying it's 1.5 of REG, you don't have to list it. It won't hurt if it's listed here, but it's extra work, so you don't have to. Now, when you're setting up your benefit package and your deducts for your union tables, you can do it at 2 levels. So you'll notice here I have the trade and then I have the level. And I have some things set up at the level and some set up at the trade. And what's nice about this is if everybody gets, health and welfare and it's 6% of gross pay and it doesn't matter what level you're on, you can set it up once here at the trade and you can add it here. So for example, health and welfare is added here. When I go into it, this is a per hour one, and this is saying it's 16.46 per hour work for health and welfare, and it doesn't matter what class you are. So you can come into here and fill it out right here, and you only have to set it up once. I don't have to set it up, 15 times here, okay? That's what's nice. And so in this case, they did a lot of these. Typically, it's not this many. They're usually changing rates. But then you could say, all right, well, for dues, that does change. So we added it here. And for apprentice 1, union dues is an hour-based one in this case, but it can be percent as well. It's 0.39 per hours. Okay, so that's set up there. And then for apprentice level 2, union dues is 0.49 and so forth. Okay, so you can do that type of information. You'll notice here, foreman gets also pension, and pension is going to be set up as well that way. And to add one, it's pretty easy. You'll come into fringes here. You'll hit add, and then you do have to pick if it's amount or hour. Let's see if we have an amount one. And then you can pull it up off your list. I don't know if I have any union ones that are amount, but we can pretend here. So let's just pretend that I don't really have a good one here, but let's just pretend this is a union fringe here. And now you could say it's 3% of gross pay. Okay, that's how you would set that up there. Now, everything I've shown you so far in the compensation tables can also be imported. Reach out to us for templates. Usually when we're in deployment with you, we're going to provide some of these for you, especially if you have a lot of locals or a lot of certified tables to get in. We want you to do a couple to make sure you know how to do it when you're setting up a new one in the future. But to get you going, we can help and get some of the stuff imported. What's also nice, especially for your union tables, when the rates change or the contract changes, you can import that as well with a new effective date. And so when you come into Plumber's Local 290, you will see a new effective date. This is based on work date, so it can take effect midweek too. So for example, if I wanted to add one manually, I could come here and hit duplicate and say, as of 8/29, there's a new package. Save, and now you'll notice I got 2 here. And so now I can say for 8/29, most of the things changed, but apprentice level 1 went up to $21. Okay, so you can do that. So you have that functionality here. Now, as far as union goes, we're not done yet. We have a few more steps to get to the job setup area, and we're going to do that next. So as far as union goes, we haven't really set up an official union yet. We really just built a table to use for that union. So the next step under setup in payroll, there is a union setup where you link all that together. Usually you kind of want to spell these out the same. So let's create, there's some I already have in here, but let's just create one from scratch. And just to remind me, because I already forgot what that local was, let's do 290, okay? So under unions here, you would then come in and hit create new. And, usually again, I keep it similar. Plumbing local 290. Okay. What's the effective date? This one you don't have to worry about changing the effective date on, because as long as your table's updating, just leave this one effective date here. When you set up the union, you really only have to do 2 things. You have to pick which table to use and what trade is it under. So as you can see, I have that plumbing local 290 table. So this is where you link it to the table. And the trade that this is going to follow is, and I think I took out plumbing. So let's just pretend it's mechanical for now. I don't have a plumbing one in here, but bad example. Okay. So I have mechanical. Let's say that was mechanical. And then I would hit save. And that's out of the box all you need to do to get it to the job. Now, you also have union reciprocities, and these can become huge here, especially if you have different rules and, between locals and agreements and all that stuff. But the reciprocities are pretty cool in fact that you can do a couple things. This would be considered the home local. So if an employee's home local is in 290, but he's working on a project that is in, let's say, 26, what do you want to happen? And here's the rule for pays and benefits. We wanted to take the work local, or we wanted to take the home local for the pay, or we want to take the higher of the 2. So you could determine the reciprocity for that scenario. And you can have them different. Maybe the rate's coming from the work local, but the benefits are always coming from the home. So you can do that. Or you can say work for everything here. That's typically what happens. In addition to that, you can say we want to grab work for everything, except we're going to add a specific rule for dues. Union dues always get paid to the home. So you can actually get very granular here and select benefit by benefit as well. So you may not need this, but usually at the minimum, you need the work reciprocity set up so that it doesn't always give them the home local, it gives them the work local based on the job. Okay, and this stuff can be set up as we go and as we test. Once you have the union local set up, in the next set of videos, you're going to see where we can put it together on the job and in the employee file. I'll show you a quick glance here. And you'll see if we go back to some of these jobs, you'll see it'll tell you if it has a union. So, let's say that this job, if you're a union, you're probably going to have them for all. But let's say for this job, we need to put the union. So you wouldn't put the tables up here. That's just for non-union certified. What you would do is you would come down to this union local section. You would hit add union local and you would say, all right, what trades are you going to have on this job? And you may have more than one. You may have a laborer's and a mechanical. We'll say mechanical. And then, all right, it's going to show you all the mechanical unions that we have linked. And you say, this job is going to use 290, or this job is going to use 26. And then maybe laborer, I don't know if I have one. Nope, I don't have one. Cement masons, it's 555, okay? That's going to tell the system which work local to use whenever time is charged to that project. And then we would hit save. And then vice versa, you'll come into the employee file, and we'll get into more detail on this in later videos. You'll come into the employee file, and you'll say, all right, Tim Smith here, he's a mechanical guy, and his default level is a journeyman, and his default home local is 290. So this is where you put the home local in, and then the work local goes on the job, and then all of this is going to work together and hopefully calculate all the right union stuff for you. And, basically you just have to get the job coding correctly when you're entering time. That's going to do it for union and certified configuration. Look forward to talking to you in further videos. Thank you.